Do we have everything to fear, including fear itself, as you have once said before?
We have everything to fear, including fear itself, and the bad news hasn't yet hit, I don't think.
I think you may be right.
We're all into a losing struggle. No one has ever beaten these odds. I've looked up ahead, or if you prefer, down the road. I know what's coming. I know no one beats these odds. And it's a matter of getting used to that and growing up and realizing that you're expelled from your mother's uterus as if shot from a cannon towards a barn door studded with old nail files and rusty hooks. It's a matter of how you use up the intervening time in an intelligent and ironic way and try not to do anything ghastly to your fellow creatures. That leaves us with the question of why should we care? Somehow I'm glad that at least that bit of our innate nature is useful. But if we praise ourselves for what's innate, we're going to be praising a lot of very unpleasant things too. And there's no way around that. There's only the pretense that there's a way around it. And the second reason why it appeals is I don't know why this is, because I don't see what there is to fear in it. You're not going to know when you're dead. You're not going to know it. So there's nothing to be frightened of. But people are frightened of death. And the central lie of all religion is that there's a cure for this. And an exception will be made in your own case. An eternal life offered if you make the right propitiations and the right abjections. Well, I'm sorry. I think that's the height of immorality to lie to people like that. But that's why it survives. That's why it survives.
Now, some of you know, well, I guess you all know now, that the words of one of my favorite poets, Ernest Dowson, are quite often with me. Dowson stole them actually from the Roman poet Horace. Non sum qualis eram. I'm not as I was. And though, as I know as well as you do, there's no point in arguing about the actual date.
There's an author called Robert Graves who wouldn't be far out of her reach, I don't think. There's wonderful tales of Greek and Roman mythology, actually Greek stuff. It's pretty good.
I've already read those.
You've read all of them?
Yes.
This is getting worse and worse. She's floored me twice now. This is like the rabbis confronting Jesus outside the temple, you know.
Well, I was eager to meet famous freethinkers, and because I want to grow up to be a freethinker. My mom says I'm not, but I already am.
I really wish you well, Grace. I wish there were more like you. Actually, what would we do if there were too many? Lots of love. Take it easy. Remember the love bit.
But when Socrates was sentenced to death for his philosophical investigations and for blasphemy, for challenging the gods of the city, and he accepted his death, he did say, well, if we are lucky, perhaps I'll be able to hold conversation with other great thinkers and philosophers and doubters too. In other words, that the discussion about what is good, what is beautiful, what is noble, what is pure and what is true could always go on. Why is that important? Why would I like to do that? Because that's the only conversation worth having. And whether it goes on or not after I die, I don't know. But I do know that it's the conversation I want to have while I'm still alive. Which means that to me, the offer of certainty, the offer of complete security, the offer of an impermeable faith that can't give way, is an offer of something not worth having. I want to live my life taking the risk all the time that I don't know anything like enough yet, that I haven't understood enough, that I can't know enough, that I'm always hungrily operating on the margins of a potentially great harvest of future knowledge and wisdom. I wouldn't have it any other way. And I'd urge you to look at those of you who tell you, those people who tell you at your age that you're dead till you believe as they do. What a terrible thing to be telling to children. And that you can only live, and that you can only live by accepting an absolute authority, don't think of that as a gift. Think of it as a poisoned chalice. Push it aside, however tempting it is. Take the risk of thinking for yourself. Much more happiness, truth, beauty, and wisdom will come to you that way. Thank you.
It's considered perfectly normal in this society to approach dying people who you don't know, but who are unbelievers, and say, now are you going to change your mind? In fact, it's considered almost a polite question. And as you know, there's a long history of fraud about this. People claim that Darwin had a deathbed recantation. They made up lies about Thomas Paine. It goes on all the time. It's a very nasty little history, but there's also a horrible undertone of blackmail to it. People write and say, look, you've got about one chance left now. Aren't you going to take it? I'm writing to you as a friend. They've even tried on me when I've been very ill and I haven't had quite the vinegar I'd like to have had in a hospital bed. I don't mind, I can take it. But I think there are a lot of people older than myself, iller than myself, perhaps at the risk of seeming conceited, less educated than myself, to whom that's a horrible experience. It's very depressing and alarming to be spoken to in that way. I mean, if Sam and I were to form a corps of people to go around religious hospitals, which is what happens in reverse, and say to people who are lying in pain, say, did you say you were Catholic? Yes. Well, look, you may only have a few days left, but you don't have to live them as a serf, you know. Just recognize that was all bullshit, that the priests have been cheating you. And I guarantee you'll feel better. I don't think that would be very ethical.
Okay, but
I think it would be something of a breach of taste. But if it's in the name of if it's in the name of God, it has a social license. Well, fuck that, is what I say. And will say, if it's my last breath. Thank you.